Hey, this is the Xbox Dadcast, episode 9, showcase time. Let's do it. On this week's show, we are going to talk about the July Xbox game showcase, some potential August dates and showings of what we might get from Xbox. We're going to talk a little bit about the studios that were not highlighted during the show, and I'm going to chat a little bit about the peripherals that we will be getting with the Series X that we know about and that maybe we don't. This is a podcast about the Xbox and the upcoming Xbox Series X from the eyes of a casual gaming dad and a lifelong gamer. I am Bon Diesel, and I am an Xbox fanboy, PC casual, the Division 2 podcaster, husband to a lovely wife, and father to an adorable daughter. Please rate the podcast and share it wherever you can to whoever you can. Let's spread the love. Let's talk a bit about things that we care about and that we love, and we will go from there. I want to thank this month's Patreon supporters, Hassan, Christian, Darren, Justin, Tim, and PK. If you would like to support this podcast as well as my other content, please check out patreon.com/bondiesel. Now let's jump right on into it. So we're going to talk about the July Xbox game showcase. So this was a highly anticipated event. There's a lot going into this. There's a lot riding on this. In fact, there's a lot of people who have gone so far as to say that the future of Xbox depended on this show. I think that was a bit much, if you want me to be totally honest, but I also understand where they were coming from. So how did it go? Well, let's talk about it. I think the main topic to start with is the Halo Infinite reveal. So that's important because there's reason to believe that, this is the game that a lot is riding on. Now, I actually have some more complicated opinions on that, but we will get to that. So they showed off about 8 minutes of gameplay from a demo. We'll talk about the state of that demo, but there's also an opening cinematic and a little bit more. So Halo's an open world game now. It is for a lack of a better, it's an open world RPG, because that's the most original thing ever, right? So coming from being a big Ubisoft fan in recent years, especially Division 2, but other games as well, because basically all of their games are the same. This gives me some kind of mixed feelings. There's potential for that to be really cool. There's a lot of potential for that. On the other hand, that whole thing is kind of played out at this point. So I think there's kind of a weird, there's a weird line that we're going to have to wait to see how it gets handled. Personally, I'm mostly excited about it. From what they showed us, the gameplay still looks really fast paced. It looks fun. It looks open. It looks like you have a lot of options you can do about whatever you want. It seems like a cool way to push the game forward past just being a fairly basic single player experience. Supposedly they're going to retain a lot of those things that people really like, the more linear missions and the story and then so on and so forth. So I think they're fine. So the controversy came down to some of the graphical showing. So there was a lot of expectation and assumption that the Halo Infinite gameplay was going to be this ultra polished, perfect showing, and it was going to blow everyone's mind. And if you don't live under a rock, you'll know that that isn't what happened. So from my perspective, what I saw was what looked like an alpha build of a game, some footage they may have recorded. I mean, that they may have recorded that before the pandemic even started. It looked rough in a lot of ways. Now, a big issue is a lot of people watched it on the stream, which was awful quality. It was bad. So I have watched it, the 4K 60 FPS as well. It looks better than the stream did, absolutely. But there was something very like kind of plasticky about it, and very like lacking in detail. It was interesting. So now, from my experience and knowledge with other games, what I think we saw was, if it really was like an early build, those builds almost always have lots of things turned way down, lots of features turned off completely, short draw distances, temporary or unfinished textures, and things like that. I don't want to assume that was the case with this demo, because I don't know. And that may be too easy of like an excuse. But we'll see. The biggest thing that's getting pointed out is that there were some of the character models seemed fairly low res and not very detailed, all things considered, especially just even compared to like the most recent Halo game, Halo 5, which had, I thought, very good looking graphics and characters and such, and environments. There was also, some pretty blatant issues with some pop in like really far distances and things like that. I mean, it's interesting because there's this idea that all these new systems are these like, they're so powerful, and they are very powerful compared to what we have now, but they're still not going to be like $2,000 high-end gaming machines, right? And Xbox does have the situation where they are still making these games that will potentially work on the original Xbox and so on. So I personally wasn't super offended by what I saw graphically from Halo. It didn't blow my mind, but it also didn't like completely disappoint me. What I kind of liked about it is a lot of it looked a lot like Halo 1 and 2 and 3. With Halo 4 and 5, they tried to get like a little too, I don't know. I just felt like there was a bit much to it. It was a lot. So I wasn't, offended by what I saw. It looked fun. The gameplay looked really fun. The addition of a like a grappling hook looked really cool, and it looked like it's going to give kind of a Doom type of gameplay, which is awesome. It looked like the weapons felt good. The sounds were really, really good. The sound design seems really awesome. It sounds like the soundtrack is going to be excellent, from who's doing it and things like that. So it's to be expected. There were obviously going to be a large number of people who had zero desire to like what was going to get shown, no matter what got shown, right? So whether or not it was perfect or not, there were going to be people who were going to hate on it and do all that stuff. That's just the nature, unfortunately, of gaming right now. A bunch of people arguing about who is a bigger fan of their multi-billion-dollar tech company, corporation, who doesn't care about them back. But that's just the way it goes. What I will say is, at the end of the day, I do expect the graphics to look better than they did in that demo. If they don't, that will be a misstep. But I don't think we saw a final product there. And I at least don't expect the game to look worse than Halo 5, which it kind of did in some ways. And so I'll be surprised if the final product comes out and that's what we see, but we don't know that yet. So another topic I saw come up, that there may be no beta for Halo now. I don't know if this is because of what got shown in the demo. I highly doubt it. I think it's probably way more likely they're behind on some stuff, and they because of COVID and the pandemic and working from home and all of that super fun stuff. So I think, it would be a bummer, but at the same time, if there are things that they can work on and make look better, as I speak, if you're watching the video, we have the gameplay popping up and showing now. I don't think it looks that bad. I'm watching it in 2K, 60 FPS. Yeah, it's not The Last of Us 2 quality graphics and animations and character models. But what you'll also find if you look at a lot of the memes that have popped up and stuff is it's pretty. There's a lot of people who are just posting like 160p screen caps and comparing it to CGI The Last of Us 2, which is just not cool. Like, you can't do that, especially when you don't have to. The Last of Us 2 looks incredible in motion, so there's no reason to cheat and do CGI. But, again, you won't see much fairness or logic when it comes to the quote-unquote console wars. But I don't think it was that bad. I would like to see a beta, because especially if they could put out a beta and it would have all of the lighting effects in and a lot of stuff that seems like it was missing from this demo, to kind of make everything just look a little better. It seems like there's just some stuff missing. It kind of seems like, I think that would be a good thing to kind of quell some of the chitter chatter. But I don't think it was that bad. I think it looks fine. And if they don't do a demo, that's a bummer. If they end up doing one, great. The final thing is that there was a rumor that multiplayer would not come at the same time as the game releases, but that was pushed back on by someone from 343, the developer, and basically it seems like it should be assumed that there will be multiplayer when the game comes out. So again, we'll have to wait and see. But I would find it pretty hard to believe that they wouldn't have that come out. It is worth mentioning that they are really talking about this as if it's going to be kind of a game as a service. So, we may not see Halo Infinite 2. We're probably going to see Halo Infinite for like 5 years. And they're probably going to add like big content drops and things like that. That can be very good or very bad. It seems like a lot of games have struggled with that live game thing. Again, as a fan of Division 2, I've seen the ups and the downs of that, and as an observer of Destiny and things like that. So I think that's if you want to do that, you have to be really careful. You have to make sure you are putting out content on a schedule, that you have a good roadmap, and that the content is really good. So yeah, we'll see. There is, it's just a weird feeling around this whole thing, because even though I'm happy to defend what we saw, that I don't think it was as bad as it's being made by a lot of people, I also think that maybe they should have shown a different part of the game. Maybe they should have not done the sequence that, if you're watching the video, that's happening now, where we're seeing all this pop in and all this weird texture stuff happening way out in the distance. That was a bad look, and I'm really surprised that someone didn't say, hey, I don't think this is what we should show. On the other hand, a part of me actually appreciates seeing this, because assuming it's like a beta build or an early unfinished build, it's nice to see it compared to something like what happened with Anthem, where they literally made a whole separate game for the Anthem E3 demo that did not represent the end game, but it wasn't even the game. Like, it was a whole separate thing that they just came up for E3. It was never intended to be a part of the game. And so I don't want that. So I think this is better than something like that. But I think they're getting some justifiable kickback, and it has been weird to me. Obviously, I'm annoyed with the people making too big of a deal out of what they saw. I will say, though, that there's been a few people on podcasts and stuff that I watch who have been like, I didn't see anything wrong with the graphics. And I'm like, I mean, come on. Like, you can at least admit, like, it wasn't like amazing. It didn't, a lot of the stuff didn't blow your mind. You can do that without being one of the assholes, right? So I did think that was kind of a weird thing I've noticed with some of the content creators who I really enjoy. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what comes of it in the long run. But there's a lot more to talk about. So there were a lot of in progress games that got shown. Hellblade, the Hellblade 2, the sequel, which will be an Xbox exclusive now. Which the first Hellblade is one of my favorite games of the current gen. So Hellblade 2 being exclusive is, in my opinion, a big get. There was no gameplay from it though. I was hoping to see something, but that's fine. Beggars can't be choosers. Obviously, at the end of the show, they had a big Fable reveal, which was awesome. I mean, that's not something I'm crazy excited about, but I understand what that means. And for Xbox as a system, as a platform, it's a big deal to have that. It just increases that library of high quality games that Xbox really desperately needs. From having a stable of content that's high quality and good for everyone. So Fable, that's coming, probably not for a while. Everwild had my favorite trailer of the entire show. Still don't really know what the hell that game is, and that's okay. We'll find out eventually. But just the aesthetic of it is just so gorgeous and just so serene and just looks so cool. I'm really excited for that. That's coming from Rare, which is a big deal. They're a great company. So, we got a little in-game footage of Forza. Forza looks like it's rebooting. It looks like it's going to be just Forza Motorsport. And it looks like we may see a kind of a live game thing from them as well, which is another one that can do that. That can work for them. So we'll have to see how that works out. Forza is always great. I always play it for a few months and then I'm done with it, but it's still great. We did see Avowed come from Obsidian, which looks like it's going to be their big kind of Elder Scrolls type project. Again, probably not around for a while, but looks super duper fun. And then we saw Stalker 2 get previewed. Did not expect that and super pumped to see it. So the first Stalker has a lot of, that's a messed up game, but it's a very heralded game. And I'm glad that we'll be seeing that with Xbox, even if it's not like one of the 10 million copy sellers. It's still really cool. Some of the kind of unexpected excitement I got came from like Grounded, which had a hilarious trailer. I think the trailer has shown if you're watching the video feed, but they did a really funny joke at the beginning where they're like, "Are you excited for the biggest game of 2020? Well, that's Cyberpunk 2077, but when you're not playing that, check out Grounded." And then they went into kind of like a funny thing with that. I really appreciated that self-realization that came along with that. And that game looks fun. I mean, that's another Obsidian game. Like, they're no slouches. Now, what that game probably is I suspect for Avowed, Obsidian has hired a ton of people. So more than likely, Grounded is a project for all of the new people to work on to kind of get their chops and see how things work there. So I don't know. I think it looks fun. I'm sure I'll check it out. State of Decay 3 was another one that got previewed, and The preview is, if you see the footage on the right, or if you go check it out for yourself, it's a lady camping in the woods in the winter, and a wolf is kind of watching over her, and she like yells at the wolf and it runs away. And then she goes off hiking and finds the wolf being eaten by a mutated deer. And just this cool scene. And then it was State of Decay 3, and I was like, what? And what it almost looks like they're trying to hint at with that trailer is, State of Decay 1 and 2 were these kind of somewhat casual survival games where you can play as multiple characters, and you build up a base, you collect resources, and then once you have enough resources and people, you move to a new base in this big area. And then in the second game, you complete some tasks and it ends, and you just start over again. What this is giving me vibes of is something along the lines of, I'm wondering if their State of Decay 3 will be their first one fully under Microsoft. The State of Decay 2, I think, came out right after Microsoft acquired them, so it didn't have any of their financial help. So this one, what I think is going to happen is State of Decay 3 is going to be a single player story that's going to be like a gritty, like The Last of Us style, like narrative story. And then what I bet it's going to have is like a side mode or like a sandbox mode where it takes a lot of those same elements, but then does a more traditional State of Decay thing where you can build up a community, recruit people, clear out the zones, and but maybe in a much more gritty kind of way. I'm super pumped. State of Decay 2 is one of my favorite games of the current gen, and it actually rated really well, all things considered. I mean, it wasn't a AAA game. State of Decay 2 wasn't, so I'm hoping 3 will be. And it should be, because they've been acquired and hopefully have been given all that lovely money to make things better. So I was really pumped. Crossfire X was a game. It's being made by Remedy, who did Control and a bunch of other really good games. They looked like a really good version of Call of Duty. I was really amazed to see the CGI quality, the cutscenes was like so good. And the gameplay, I think, looked really fun. It looks like it's almost kind of like a Crisis kind of Call of Duty mix. It was really, really interesting. And I'm excited to see more about it. It looks really fun. I think that's a timed exclusive. I don't believe it's a fully exclusive game to Xbox, but I could be wrong. You can do the research for me if you're still listening. The last one is actually the trailer that's showing on the video now, is The Medium, which is this game where you're playing in two different worlds at any given time. And in one, it's the real world, where it's a real person. The other one seems like it's kind of like a shadow realm or something like that, where even your character has some kind of mystical looks to her and stuff like that. But it looks like if you ever played Hellblade, there's the whole deal where you have like the two different worlds, and you have to do stuff in one to affect the other one to progress. And that's what it seems like this kind of is. At least that's what it reminds me of. It looks good, but I don't do scary games or movies, so this may be one of those ones that I watch a summary of or a let's play, but I still think it looked really good. It did get announced today that it's going to run at 4K 30 FPS. I assume because of the way it's going to have like the dual world thing, so it's probably rendering everything twice at the same time. So I have to imagine they're making some concessions for that. But to kind of wrap it up, I mean, the overall feel of the show, again, I think it really depends on what your personal loyalties are and things like that. I think besides some of the graphical stuff with Halo, it was a knockout show, easily on par with what we just got from Sony, last month. And what I think people don't give a ton of credit to is that last month with Sony, they revealed what their system looks like, and that's a big deal. And what didn't happen, Xbox released what their system looked like a year ago. That's been a known factor. So if they hadn't done that and they released what the Xbox looked like during this conference, I think that, would definitely have even made up that gap. So, I mean, for me, I more look at what the two systems have done for the last year. And I think they're very on par at this point. I know there's a lot of talk of like, oh, PlayStation has the IP and stuff like that. And of what we know is coming, they really don't. I mean, they have an offshoot Spider-Man game, which will probably just be basically a DLC of the current game with some upgrades to it. The Horizon Zero Dawn sequel, which will probably be amazing. I have no doubt in my mind. Godfall or whatever it's called. Like, I don't, Warframe with swords. I don't think that looks all that incredible. There's some of the cartoony games and stuff, which I'm sure will be great, but I really don't think that the libraries look that much different at this point. And I think that, and I hope that this is going to be a generation where it makes complete sense to have both systems. I'm really not in the camp of saying like, oh, I want Xbox to dominate Sony, because Sony's not going to let that happen. And we shouldn't really want that to happen. The game industry is better when there's tight competition. This current generation kind of got screwed over by Sony doing so well and Xbox not doing that well, because that let Sony kind of sit on their feet and rest on their laurels. I mean, most of the Sony exclusive games that are so good are all third-person adventure games. They don't really have anything multiplayer of note, no massively multiplayer things of note that are exclusive to them. All of their signature games are games that you play by yourself for 20 to 30 hours, which is super cool. And I'm obviously jealous of that from an Xbox perspective. Now, personally, I'm not, because I just watch other people play them and I'm happy with that. I'm a big The Last of Us fan, and I've never played it, and I probably never will. But I think even if Halo isn't a graphical masterpiece, Halo still is going to provide a thing that even all of PlayStation's exclusives together don't provide. A massive single player story, co-op, multiplayer, probably a BR eventually, being able to create your own like maps and games and missions and all this stuff. Like it's a unique thing. And when you look at the other exclusives, even if it's like the pirate game, which I'm not into, but I appreciate it. That Sea of Thieves, that's it. That's a unique thing, and it's a really popular game now that they've figured stuff out. It was a little rough at first. I just think that I've seen some sentiment where people are like, it kind of seems like the three major game companies aren't even competing with each other anymore. They're just doing what they do. Sony's doing the single player, route. Xbox is doing the play everything everywhere and play it with everyone and Nintendo's just being Nintendo, and that's okay. I want them to all be really good, because that means that gamers are getting better games. It means that prices get handled better because there's actual competition, and it means that the game companies and the developers of the games are pushing each other to be better and better and better and push things and not just do the same crap over and over again. Ubisoft. So, this is a good thing. And I swear, if you are going to attack people or be an asshole to people because they like the multi-billion-dollar tech company, corporation that you don't, just stop. Like what you like. Try to like everything. And if you don't, no one wants to hear it. just to be honest. But yeah, overall, I thought the show was great. I think it was a really good showing. I think right now both companies are basically on par with each other, and now we have to see which one is going to pull the trigger first on prices. And speaking of that, there are some rumors at this point of an August show for Xbox, where the Lockhart, the lower powered but cheaper machine, may be revealed. And I don't think they would reveal the Lockhart without releasing prices for both systems and doing a release date. So I'm fully expecting to see that at this point. There is not too much change on where I think they're going with that. I think that the Series X is going to be $499, and I think they may do the Lockhart at $299. Or maybe like $349 maybe, but I think $299, and I think it's going to be like, I think it's like on par with the One X, or a little bit more powerful. I think it uses the SSDs and stuff, so it has that upgrade as well. That's what I'm expecting. So I hope that's what I'm hoping for, because I really, they can't do another June, where June just had no information. They can't do that again. They can't do that again until the Series X is released. There's no time for that. So we will have to wait and see. So we're going to hit the mid-roll real quick, and then we will move on to the rest of the show, and then we will wrap this thing up. Okay, so a couple other topics I had here were there were some missing studios from the presentation, the most notable being The Initiative. So a lot of people think that they're doing something big. So whatever they're doing is being described as a quadruple A game. So that's a pretty big task. That's a pretty big statement to make, to say you're making a quadruple A game. But they have the manpower and they have the individuals to do that. So a lot of people think it's going to be Perfect Dark, kind of like a reboot. But we'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than one project. But we see most of these new studios working on like a big project and a small project. Like I said before, probably to initiate newer people into the company, or to just have more than one thing going on. Another one was World's Edge, didn't get featured. I thought we would see Age of Empires 4. We did not see that, so I can just keep my fingers crossed. I love the Age of Empires season. It might still be my most played franchise, even though I haven't played much in the last 10 years. I played that so much when I was in high school and middle school, I think. And then the Coalition. So I think it's easy to assume there's another Gears game in the works, and we'll have to see how they play with that. I think it would be Gears 7, pretty sure. And it would be interesting, though, to see them maybe do like a small project as well. But we will have to wait and see about that. The kind of final topic I had was talking a bit about the peripherals and stuff. So I think we know about the new controller with the Series X. They're saying that all of the current controllers and all of the current peripherals will work, but surely they'll have new ones. I know the Elite Series 2 just came out for the controllers. I think that they'll do a Series X Elite as well. I can't imagine they would, because like with the share button and stuff like that, I have a hard time believing they'll just let the current gen controller be like just behind. So I suspect we'll see like a Series 3 or Xbox Series X Pro controller or something like that. And maybe I'll finally buy one if I can find it. I think that we'll also see like a media controller. I don't know if that's been announced or not, but I love having the media controller. I don't know if I will now because of the way I use my Xbox, but if I ever decide to put the Xbox down in the living room or something like that, those media controllers were so baller back in the day. I believe I had one for the early Xbox One and the 360. I believe I had both. I think we had one for the original Xbox too, my roommate and I, because I thought it had like a little thing you had to put in one of the controller spots, but I could be wrong. and then we've seen a lot of other stuff like the headphones and things like that. I still think at some point we are going to see some type of announcement of a partnership with Xbox and one of the VR headset manufacturers. I think it would very likely be Facebook, but it could be one of the other ones. But I don't think that Xbox is going to delve into that probably ever, but definitely not anytime soon. So, and I honestly think that would be the way to go. But the logistics of that and getting the games onto the system and things like that, obviously would be a bit of a complication. So we'll have to see. Okay, and then finally here for some content updates, what I will probably do is record the EchoCast, my Division 2 podcast, for the next couple weeks until we hear about an August show for Xbox. And then I would probably do an episode before the show to speculate, and then an episode after the show to react. So just be on the lookout for that. And that's what I have. So I didn't have any listener questions this week. Please feel free to ask questions in the Discord or on the Twitter accounts and so on and so forth. Please take a moment to rate this podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. I very much appreciate it. If you want to support the podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BonDiesel. I am BonDiesel on Twitch, where I try to stream a few times a week when I can. You can catch me on Twitter at BonDiesel or at Xbox Dadcast. And there we go. Until the next time we meet, be good and game on.